but because of California's leaning in on addressing the emissions, pollution, and climate challenges, California has become the fourth largest economy in the world. We have proven that what's good for clean air is good for business and the economy, and that is something that y'all to replicate and scale up, not fear and stifle. We have to be able to do both, protect our planet, strengthen our economy. California has shown us the way. We can have reliable cars. Our kids can breathe clean air. We can invest in our economy and in our future. California has been proud to fill the role of national leader in this space. We will continue to try to do anything and everything we can to do so, both for our interest and for the nation's. But what's happened these last 24 hours makes the job that much harder. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.
President.
Senator from California.
Madam President, members, welcome to the Roaring Twenties. Not the ones you may have read about in F. Scott Fitzgerald novels, not the ones with jazz and liberation and industrial boom. I mean these Roaring Twenties, the ones where instead of flappers you get fossil fuel and dirty air, where instead of innovation you get obstruction, tariffs, isolationism, blinding nostalgia for a world that no longer exists. Instead of leaders who want to tackle the climate crisis head on, you get votes to tear down the tools that we need to fight it. The reason I stand here today and was here last night until 1:32 in the morning is that Senate Republicans have pushed through resolutions to revoke California's authority to set its own vehicle emissions standards, to set its own rules about what kind of air we breathe in California. This is an authority that my state has had by statute for more than 50 years. We've had the right to deal with our unique problems of congestion, our topography, our smog. We've had the right to demand of ourselves cleaner air for ourselves and for our children. And that is under attack right now, and not just California's ability to set its standards to protect its people, but because other states have also followed California's lead, this will affect the quality of air all around the country. And that is the gravamen of the problem for my colleagues in the GOP, and that is that it's not just California, it's the fact that so many other states have followed our lead. So many other states have decided they'd rather have fewer cancers than more cars with the combustion engines. That was their choice. That was their right. They weren't coerced into joining California. They made the decision about what was best for their constituents. And it is not for us in this body to arrogate to ourselves to decide we know better for Californians or we know better for people in other states than what their own leaders have decided about the quality of their air. This is a direct attack not only on my state, but on our ability to innovate, to lead, and indeed to breathe clean air. This is bad policy, clearly, certainly, yes, but it is also a dangerous abuse of the process in this House that will lead to other harmful consequences. To get this done, to repeal California's statutory waiver to set its own air pollution rules, Republican leadership have decided to blow a procedural hole in the filibuster. And let's call it what it is. This is a dangerous new kind of nuclear option that dispenses with the filibuster, but they would have us believe only here, only when it's necessary to cater to the oil industry. It is the oil exception to the filibuster rule. Now, the nuclear option has been used over nominees in the past, And there has been debate about doing away with the filibuster entirely. But today what we're talking about is only carving out the oil industry from the filibuster. So not carving out protection for voting rights, not carving out protection for reproductive freedom, not carving out fundamental rights for the American people, for which there would be a strong case to have a carve-out from the filibuster. But no, today we're talking about an oil industry-only carve-out. And they're using it to overturn some of the most successful clean air policies in American history. Since the 1960s, California has had the obligation and the ability and the authority to lead, and they've used it. We've used it to reduce pollution, to increase fuel efficiency, and drive innovation across the country. And much of the country has California to thank for the development of electric vehicles, for the improvement in fuel efficiency standards, because as we have led, others have followed, and industry has adapted. Despite the naysayers and those always saying it's too hard, it can't be done, America got cleaner cars thanks to California, and consumers got more choices thanks to California. Now, some in this chamber want to go back in time, not because the policy failed, but because it succeeded. Imagine if just after Henry Ford unveiled the Model T, Congress passed a resolution demanding we double down on bigger, stronger horses. Because that's what this is, a deliberate attempt to deny the future because it threatens the status of big oil. The president says that he is for energy independence. That's our mantra. Make America energy independent. But that is not what they're doing. They're killing clean energy all over the country. You know what just came out of the House in the dead of night last night in their reconciliation bill, their big ugly bill? A provision to essentially kill every clean energy project in the country that's not almost all finished. If it isn't going to be operational in a very short period of time, they want to pull the plug. Now, why would they do that? Why would they do that when, in fact, most of those projects are in red states, not blue ones, not states like California, but states like Indiana and Kentucky? Why would they do that? Because the obligation here is not to their state or constituents. The obligation here is to the oil industry. They would sacrifice the jobs in the clean energy industry all over the country to their own constituents. They would put those people out of work. And why? Because of fealty to the oil industry. This is not about energy independence. It is about oil dependence. Today we are in a full transition to a clean transportation future, or we could be. And Senate Republicans are trying to bring back the smog. They're trying to make America smoggy again. We're seeing the climate crisis, and they're trying to cut the brake lines on progress. We're literally standing at the gates of the future, a future that we will lead or China will lead, a renewable energy future, and some would rather turn it all around and ride off in a horse and buggy. Because that's what this vote means. That's what these votes mean. Not just being stuck in a past technology, beholden to an old way of doing things, but also stuck in a dirtier and more toxic world. Millions will be stuck breathing in hazardous emissions unnecessarily. What is the pay for here? What is the pay for this gift to the oil industry? Cancer. Cancer is the pay for. We will pay for this repeal of clean air rules with cancer. Maybe your cancer, maybe your father's cancer, maybe your sister's cancer, maybe your child's cancer. That will be the pay for. Because this is about power, and it's about profit, and it's about punishing states that dare to lead. It's about undermining the Senate's own rules to score a short-term win that will do long-term damage, but will placate the oil industry. Because once you start twisting the CRA into a weapon to attack anything you don't like, rules, waivers, facts. You don't just hurt California, you hurt the country. Because don't think for a second it ends here. If this gambit works, it will not be the last time this tactic is used. Today, we blow a hole in the filibuster for the oil industry. Tomorrow, we blow another hole in the filibuster for what other polluting industry? Or, more broadly, should we expect this majority to use it to strip away protections for workers or privacy rights or reproductive freedom? This is the real fight here, not just over emissions or waivers or vehicles, but whether we are a nation led by and empowered to shape the future or held hostage by the past. The Roaring '20s were a time of reckless optimism. The stock market soared, inequality deepened, and political leaders told Americans not to worry, everything was under control. Until it wasn't. Because the same decade that gave us jazz and swing also gave us the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, a disastrous attempt to protect American industry by walling off our economy to the rest of the world. It sparked global retaliation, strangled trade, and helped turn a market crash into a full-blown depression. And what are we seeing now? New tariffs, retaliation threats, political attacks on states that lead, and now an attempt to tear down environmental progress and green innovation just as the global economy is demanding more of it, much more of it. The Roaring '20s gave us invention, yes, but also illusion. A false belief that we could grow forever without rules and without consequences. We are in danger of making the same mistake again. We should be building the EV infrastructure for the future, not dismantling climate progress. We should be investing in clean energy, not clinging to combustion engines. We should be protecting the rules of this chamber, not torching them when they become inconvenient to the oil industry. The gutting of these norms doesn't end in prosperity. The sacrifice of clean air doesn't end in making us healthy again. It ends in cancer. It ends in an enfeebled economy. It ends in a country going backward and shrinking in on itself. It ends in crisis. Let's not go there. I yield back.
The gentleman from Florida.
Madam President, I stand today to condemn the anti-Semitic and hate-fueled murders of Yaron Lachinsky and Sarah Milgram that occurred last night at the hands of a Hamas sympathizer. This was a sickening, violent, and anti-Semitic attack in our nation's capital. These two young professionals were targeted and murdered because they represented Israel and the Jewish people, with their murderer chanting, "Free Palestine," after killing them in cold blood. These were innocent, out for a night together at the Capitol Jewish Museum here in D.C., just like members of our own staff do each and every week. This anti-Semitism and hate for Israel and the Jewish people is disgusting, unacceptable, and must be condemned on every level. It's despicable and it's dangerous. We've seen a rise in anti-Semitism and anti-Israel hate since the October 7, 2023 attacks. We've seen Hamas sympathizers take over college campuses and instill fear into Jewish students. We've seen violent protests on our streets and now in our nation's capital. Jewish Americans are afraid to walk outside or live their daily lives. For nearly 600 days now, Israel has defended itself against Iran-backed Hamas terrorists who want to destroy Israel and destroy the Jewish people. These terrorists murder babies and women in cold blood, take and murder innocent people, and brag about their acts with no remorse. They took innocent people, including Americans, hostage and tortured them. They still hold the bodies of American hostages to deprive their families of closure. Israel is the United States' greatest democratic ally in the Middle East. We cannot abandon our ally. Thankfully, we have a president who is an ally of Israel and is working to fight anti-Semitism in the United States. President Trump is pushing back on colleges and universities that allow hateful anti-Semitic actions on campus that threaten the safety of Jewish students. He has appointed the most pro-Israel cabinet ever assembled. He is committed to defending Israel, combating terrorism, and protecting Jewish Americans. Today, I rise to condemn last night's heinous and anti-Semitic attack on these innocent people. I condemn this hateful rhetoric against Israel and against the Jewish people, who deserve the right to live freely and without fear in the United States and around the world. The United States must always stand with Israel and the Jewish people, and today we join together to remember the innocent lives taken in an act of hate and pay tribute to their lives and the contributions of the Jewish people to our nation. The fight against anti-Semitism is a bipartisan one. I am grateful for my colleague Jackie Rosen for working with me to draft a resolution that draws attention to anti-Semitism in America and declaring May Jewish American Heritage Month. I yield to my colleague from Nevada, Senator Rosen.
Oops, there we go. I need the microphone. Madam. Well, I want to begin by thanking my colleague from Florida for his bipartisanship and his partnership in moving to pass this bipartisan resolution to recognize American Jewish Heritage Month by unanimous consent. I also want to take a moment to speak about the horrific murders that took place last night. Like so many other Jews in America and around the world, I woke up this morning heartbroken by the news of yet another unspeakable act of anti-Semitic violence that occurred late last night. This time in our nation's capital, less than 1 mile from where I'm standing this very moment. The shooting occurred outside of the Jewish Capitol Museum, where the American Jewish Committee was holding a large event, and the shooter went there specifically to target and kill Jews and people who he perceived to be Jewish. This anti-Semitism, plain and simple. There's no justification in the world for carrying out or condoning this violent and vile hate crime. It's pure anti-Semitic violence. My heart is shattered for the 2 Israeli embassy workers who were killed, Yaron and Sarah, taken from us far, far too soon. Both committed to public service, social action, peace, the betterment of the world. They were a young couple in love. I've read reports that Yaron was planning to propose to Sarah next week in Israel. They were cruelly taken from us far too soon at the beginning of their lives. May their memory be for a blessing, and may their killer be brought to swift justice. It's a tragedy that these innocent lives cut short by hate, and it continues to be a tragedy that these incidents continue to occur in the United States and all over the world. Over the last few years alone, we've seen anti-Semitic hate, extremist violence. They've done nothing but increase across this country. All over America, Jewish people, we've been threatened, beaten, verbally accosted, we've been killed just because of our faith, just because of who they are, because of who we are. We've seen horrendous anti-Semitic incidents and attacks on Jewish communities, at schools and on college campuses, on Jewish-owned places of business, and on synagogues and places of worship. And incidents of anti-Semitism in the U.S. and globally have risen dramatically since Hamas's brutal terrorist attack on October 7th. All of it is wrong. It has no place in our country, no place in our society, no place in the world. Those who commit these egregious acts, they want to send a message. They want to terrorize Jews, they want to scare Jews, they want to intimidate us, and it's vital that we all stand up together and send a clear and forceful message. And the message is this: we will not be afraid. We will not be afraid. We cannot be silent. There's desperate need to confront dangerous and growing anti-Semitism in our country, around the world, to show that bigoted efforts to intimidate us will not work. We cannot be afraid. We cannot be silent. And that's why I'm here on the Senate floor today, by passing this resolution and recognizing Jewish American Heritage Month. We are not just celebrating the numerous accomplishments and contributions that Jews have made to our country. We are sending the message back, a message that Jewish people have a place in America, that this is our home as well, that our lives, well, that they have value and they have meaning, just like anyone else, and that our country stands with it. So I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for allowing to allow this resolution to pass, and I want to thank Senator Scott of Florida for his partnership in the effort to counter anti-Semitism and hate everywhere. So, Madam President, I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to the consideration of S-Res 246 submitted earlier today.
The clerk will report.
Senate Resolution 246, recognizing the significance of Jewish American Heritage Month and calling on elected officials and civil society leaders to counter anti-Semitism.
Without objection, the Senate will proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent that the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, thank you to all my colleagues for passing this important resolution unanimously today. I yield the floor.
Madam President,
Senator from Mississippi.
I know of no further business and suggest that we proceed to a vote.
Is there further debate on the joint resolution? If not, the clerk will read the title for the third time.
HJ Res 89, Joint Resolution providing congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5 United States Code and so forth.
The question is on passage of the joint resolution. Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks, Ms. Baldwin. Mr. Banks. Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Blunt-Rochester, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Britt, Mr. Budd, Ms. Campwell, Mrs. Capito. Ms. Campwell, Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Cornyn, Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Curtis, Mr. Daines, Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst, Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gallego, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty, Ms. Hassan, Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Hoven, Mr. Husted, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice, Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis,
Lummis, aye.
Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Moreno, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Reed, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Locken, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young. Senators voting in the affirmative: Collins, Kramer, Cruz, Grassley, Husted, Hyde-Smith, Johnson, Kennedy, Langford, Lee, Lummis, McConnell, McCormick, Mullen, Paul, Ricketts, Rounds, Schmidt, Scott of Florida, Scott of South Carolina, and Wicker. Senators voting in the negative: Mr. Hoven, aye. Senators voting in the negative: Alsobrooks, Baldwin, Cantwell, Coons, Cortez Masto, Fetterman, Gallego, Hassan, Hickenlooper, Hirono, Kane, Kelly, Kim, Klobuchar, Lujan, Markey, Merkley, Murray, Padilla, Rosen, Schatz, Schiff, Schumer, Smith, Van Hollen, Warner, Whitehouse, and Wyden. Mr. Peters, no. Mr. Sheehy, aye. Ms. Warren, no. Mr. Tuberville, aye. Mrs. Gillibrand, no. Mr. Durbin, no. Mr. Curtis, aye. Mr. Welch, no. Mr. Haggerty, aye. Mr. Daines, aye. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Barrasso, aye. Mr. Marshall. Mr. Marshall, aye. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blumenthal, no. Ms. Blunt Rochester. Ms. Blunt Rochester, no. Ms. Murkowski, and Ms. Murkowski, aye.
Would engage in. And I know they would be highly critical if the parties were reversed. In addition, once that waiver is struck down, it's suggested under the rules of the CRA that a similar waiver might not be able to be granted in the future. So now you have two laws in conflict with each other. One law says you can grant the waiver. The other law says if something was struck down through the CRA, nothing similar can be done. How are we to resolve this? My colleagues have no answer. They've taken us down a path where words have no meaning and where sheer power by one of the richest enterprises in America, the fossil fuel industry, is all that matters. They are the puppet masters of my Republican colleagues. They have pulled the strings, and now we are in deep trouble to have an honest foundation for legislative action. This one waiver was something that the fossil fuel industry really hated because when cars became more efficient, they used less oil, and therefore the oil companies made more money. When these waivers were enacted, people were incentivized to buy cars that didn't even burn gasoline. And the oil companies were like, oh my goodness, we're not going to make as much money. Help us, dear Republicans. Help us out here. Invent something. Change the meaning of some words. Find some way to go past the normal legislative process to somehow deliver what we want. And my colleagues obliged. The damage is done. It's going to be extremely difficult to fix it. It's eviscerated half a century of California's clean air protections. It was the wrong thing to do to blow up the good work of a state seeking to solve its air pollution problem. It was absolutely the wrong thing to do to blow up the integrity of this body by deciding a waiver is a rule and undermining the ability of any group to act with confidence based on decisions made by the government of the United States. Because whether you have a waiver, or you have a permit, or you have a license, now you don't know whether some powerful interest is going to have this body rip it away from you. Let's work together to reestablish integrity in this chamber, integrity in our legislative process that was so badly damaged yesterday and last night. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
To recognize the senator from Oklahoma.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Energy and Natural Resources be discharged from further consideration of S-1051 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report.
S-1051, a bill to establish the historic Greenwood District Black Wall Street National Monument in the state of Oklahoma and for the purposes.
Is there an objection to proceeding to the measure? Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that
the committee is discharged.
Thank you.
And the Senate will proceed.
Thank you. I ask unanimous consent the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there an objection? Without objection.
Mr. President, I rise today to talk about two separate issues that seem to be confusing in our current climate at this point. The first of those is something called nationwide injunctions. Now, for folks that don't track this issue of nationwide injunctions, they have no idea what this means. I would tell you it is a fairly recent thing. We have three branches of government. Any civics student in middle school knows that. We have the legislative branch, we have the executive branch, and we have the judicial branch, and all three have unique roles. The legislative branch that we're in right now, we write the law. The executive branch executes the law. Judicial branch interprets the law. Now, we know there's a difference between the House and the Senate. The Senate has a responsibility and the House has a responsibility, and they're different, but they're both in the legislative branch. Judicial branch also has different pieces as well, just like the legislative branch. There's a Supreme Court, we know that, it's right across the street. There's 9 justices that sit there, and they're the final decision maker on what the law says. But there's also daughter courts. There's circuit courts below the Supreme Court, and below the Supreme Court, there's district courts. District courts are scattered all over the country. And those individual small district courts that are scattered all around the country, those individual courts, they make a decision on the person that's in front of them. Now, again, this is fairly simple civics. When you have a federal case in front of you, you go to the district court and you file and you get time in front of a judge. Now, it may take time to be able to get there, but they make a decision on what is in front of them. That's what district courts do. They don't make decisions on something that's in a different state. The fine judges that are in Oklahoma make decisions about the case that's in front of them in Oklahoma. They don't decide a case in Indiana because they're not in Indiana. And it's not a case filed in front of them. It's only the case filed in front of them in Oklahoma. Now, if there's a dispute about that, it can be appealed, and it goes up to a circuit court, and it takes in a region, and if there's a dispute even there, they take it on to the Supreme Court. Pretty simple, until the last several decades. You see, prior to 1960, there was no such thing as a nationwide injunction. No one even considered that. But we started seeing this beginning point where a district judge in a court in a single state would hear a case and to say, this is so big, I'm not going to let this go to the circuit court or to the Supreme Court. I'm going to, in my lowest court in the federal structure, I'm going to decide for the entire country, not just the person in front of me. And there were just a few that happened at that time, and the Supreme Court kind of looked away because they seemed like big cases. But then it started to rise. During George W. Bush administration, there were 6 nationwide injunctions that were done in these local district courts. Under President Obama, there were 12 nationwide injunctions that were issued. Then under President Trump, the first term, there were 64 nationwide injunctions. As more and more individual district courts decided, I have an opinion, and I'm not going to decide about the case in front of me, I'm going to decide about the entire country. Under President Biden, there were 14 nationwide injunctions that happened. In fact, President Biden's Solicitor General, the one who actually argues to the Supreme Court, warned that nationwide injunctions halt the legal government actions and policies. See, this is not a Republican-Democrat thing. This is a constitutional thing. This is the United States constitutional structure to say what is the role of lower courts, what is the role of a circuit court, and what is the role of the Supreme Court. We as people in our nation, we honor the constitutional construct. And for me, it's exceptionally important that the courts are blind to these issues and that they take action on the case in front of them and not a case that's not in front of them. Senator Grassley has introduced a bill to rein in the use of nationwide injunctions. His legislation is called the Judicial Relief Clarification Act. It makes it very simple. It is an important case, or it's an important piece of legislation to decide how we're going to handle cases like this. It is very simple. Courts decide the cases in front of them. That has been the practice up until the early 1960s. We need to get it to be back to the practice again. Not a Republican issue, not a Democrat issue, a constitutional issue. Nationwide injunctions are a backdoor way for judges to actually write legislation and to bring the decision of the executive branch to a halt. The executive branch does have checks and balances, as does the legislative branch, as does the judicial branch. Those checks and balances are clear. If the executive branch does something inconsistent with the Constitution, it goes to our federal courts and quickly works its way up through the district court, circuit court, to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the one who checks the executive branch. not each district court around the country. It is the Supreme Court. And we need to be able to get back to that process in the days ahead. That needs to be done. So I'm looking forward to seeing Senator Grassley's piece of legislation actually move. A second issue. This body for the last week has had a conversation about CRAs, and most of Americans would just flip the dial and go, I don't even know what that is. Well, the Congressional Review Act is a CRA. It's actually only existed in the last several decades as Congress found a reason to do oversight of the executive branch, especially when the executive branch writes what's called a midnight regulation. Now, that doesn't mean they wrote it at midnight. That means they wrote it and put it in place at the very end of a presidency. A Congressional Review Act says if there's a piece of regulation that's put in place, a rule that's done by an agency, and it's put in place, especially when there's a change in Congress and the White House, that the next Congress and the next White House can look at it and say, yeah, that's out of bounds. That's too big. That needs to be stopped. It was actually first used under President Bill Clinton. He put in what's called an ergonomics rule that literally changed the rules for every keyboard, every desk in America that would be produced. It was a giant rule they did at the very end. The next Congress came in and said that would cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And by the way, why should we in the federal government care what everyone's desk is like? Let people choose on that. And that simple statement, that simple first time that it was actually used, has started a process now of saying if an administration at the last minute puts in a rule that Congress then comes in and says you overreached your bounds, we can check it. Now, how do you determine whether it's a rule or not? What's a rule, what's not a rule? Because a lot of times agencies put out guidance or they put out orders, they put out all kinds of things. The Congressional Review Act is very specific. It says you can only take action on this when it is actually a rule. Well, there's two different ways that that's determined, actually. One is, how much is it going to cost the entire economy? If it's over $100 million that it's going to cost the economy, it's a rule. It's going to have a massive effect across the entire economy. The second way is pretty straightforward. The Government Accountability Office, you'll hear it often referred to as GAO, in 2018, they came out and wrote their legal decision and said it can either be a big thing that costs $100 million across the government, or I'm going to quote GAO in this in their decision that the CRA, the Congressional Review Act, gives agencies the primary responsibility for determining which agency actions meet the CRA's definition of rule. In other words, agencies get the first option to say, is this a rule or is this not a rule? If an agency says it's a rule, it's a rule. That's what GAO said. They came back a couple of years later and rewrote an updated document. GAO came out again and said in their legal opinion, when an agency submits a document to our office, that is GAO, to our office under the CRA, we consider that to be the agency's determination that the document is a rule under the Congressional Review Act. Now again, everyone's glazing over on this because this just seems like legalese. Why are we even talking about this? Well, because it's been in the news this week. Because something unique happened. In 2022, the state of California put in a request to the Biden administration and said, we want to do a rule that's different in our state for electric vehicles than the rest of the country. Now, you may say, well, they can't do that. Well, actually, interestingly enough, California can. California is the only state in America because they had environmental rules even before the Clean Air Act was done. And so California got a waiver, basically, to say if your rules are at least as strong as the Clean Air Act, you can have your own rules, but you have to ask permission. So that's part of the law that was originally written on the Clean Air Act. So California approached the Biden administration in 2022 and said, we'd like to have an even stronger rule on emissions and on vehicles. We want to have a rule that says by 2026, 35% of all vehicles have to be zero emission, or that is electric vehicles, by 2026. Now, they asked for this in 2022. So they said within 4 years, we want 35% of all the vehicles sold in California to be zero emission. And by 2035, we want 100% of all vehicles to be electric vehicles, to be zero emission vehicles. Now, they asked for that in 2022, as I mentioned before. The Biden administration took a look at it, and in 2023, the Biden administration sat down with the GAO, Government Accountability Office, and they started working on the text for this. And the specific question was, how could we make sure that this is not a rule, this is an order? And for months, they worked to be able to shape the language, to be able to make sure it was an order, not a rule. And then the Biden administration sat on it and did nothing with it. In the meantime, 11 other states said, if California does that for electric vehicles, we're going to do that as well. Because here's the other thing about the law I didn't mention. The way the Clean Air Act gave permission to California to be able to do their own rules, the Clean Air Act is also written to say, if other states want to adopt the California rule, because it's at least as strong as the national, other states could do it. So in the next few months from 2022 and 2023, 11 other states adopt this rule. Suddenly, this is not a single state issue. This is a national issue. In fact, it would now affect 40% of all the vehicles sold in America. This just shifted. This is not about one state anymore. This is almost half the vehicles sold in America now are going to have a new set of rules. Biden administration sat on that request. They didn't move on it. Now, they'd gotten their opinion worked out with GAO in 2023, but they didn't move on it. Quite frankly, because the American people hate mandates. We don't like them at all. We like choice. We like to make our own decisions. I would dare say everybody in this room uses a different kind of ink pen because we all like our choices and options. We drive different cars. We wear different colors of ties and different shoes because we like our options. The Biden administration knew most American people would hate this rule because it suddenly created a nationwide mandate for what kind of car you could buy, and it had to be electric. So they sat on it. After the election was over, in late December of 2024 and into January of 2025, the Biden administration dropped their quote-unquote order and gave California permission now to be able to do zero-emission vehicles. By 2026, next year, 35% of vehicles that have to be sold across 12 different states were going to have to be zero emission, which would dramatically change car sales in America. They did it after the election. That is the very definition of a midnight regulation. That is the very definition of a rule. It meets both criteria. It's well over $100 million of impact onto our nation, and it affects multiple states. So when the Trump administration came into office, the Environmental Protection Agency immediately re-upped this, and they laid down and said, that's definitely a rule. That's a rule. The agency declared it. Now it's definitely hit both definitions. The agency declared it's a rule, and it's over $100 million of impact. But then a letter went to GAO. Remember I said in 2023 they had worked with the Biden administration? Someone in this body wrote a letter to GAO and said, hey, that thing you worked out with the Biden administration, do you still have that in a file? And GAO sent a letter back and said, well, we declared this in 2023 just an order because it only affected one state, just California. Here's the problem. GAO, as I mentioned at the beginning, in their very own legal opinion, said if an agency says it's a rule, and GAO doesn't even get involved. Literally, GAO broke its own legal opinion to now declare it's an order. Why would they do that? Well, they would do that to prevent this Congress from speaking to that rule. It would no longer be under the Congressional Review Act. I told you this was technical. But this was a fascinating little plot that went from 2022 all the way to the present to try to figure out how to get an electric vehicle mandate in America without ever having a vote in Congress. It was slick. It was well shaped. Except it was dependent on one thing: GAO breaking its own legal opinion. I happened to call the leadership of GAO just last week and said, as far as you know, has GAO ever declared something not a rule when the agency said it was a rule? And after a moment of silence, he responded, as far as I know, GAO has always deferred to the agencies until now. They literally broke their own policy. They literally violated their own legal counsel. So now we're in a quandary. GAO has broken their own legal counsel. We have an issue that will have well over $100 million worth of effect onto the country, is now a near nationwide mandate on electric vehicle sales across the country without ever having a vote in Congress. And our Democratic colleague says, you can't change it because we worked a way to be able to fix it so you couldn't. That's not true. This body worked extensively with the Parliamentarian's Office. This body worked extensively across the aisle to be able to have conversation, talking with members of the Democratic caucus to say, do you really want to have in your state a mandate that's sitting there? We don't. Not only that, what will this do to our economy across the country? This was not about challenging the essence of the Senate. This was not about breaking the filibuster rule. This was not about going nuclear. This was about confronting an entity that broke its own rules intentionally to prevent this body from acting. This was a decision to make to say, can an agency impose on America a mandate that Congress never spoke to? Never. Or does Congress get to speak to this? I would say to you as a member of the United States Senate, the United States Congress is the lawmaking body for the country. The United States Constitution begins with all legislative power shall reside in a Congress, not in an agency that wants to have electric vehicle mandates for every American. That's not how it works. So we worked to make sure that we were clarifying one simple thing. In the Congressional Review Act, in this time, as it has been every time it's been done, and for every time in the future, this one simple question: when an agency says it's a rule, is it a rule? It has been every other time until this time. We clarified that one question. It didn't change the dates of the Congressional Review Act. It didn't change the process. It answered one question that apparently was in dispute, that was never in dispute before, but now appeared to be in dispute. When an agency says it's a rule, is it a rule? And we clarified what has always been, the answer is yes, it's a rule. And then we acted on that. And this body said, no, we will not have a nationwide mandate for electric vehicles across the country. By the way, I don't have any opposition to electric vehicles. If somebody wants to buy an electric vehicle, they should be able to buy that. I think a lot of them look like great vehicles. Buy it if you choose to. But we're Americans. This body should not mandate that everyone has to be able to buy one. This body should make the path that if people choose to buy one, they can. That's setting the rules of the road, saying, here's the definition of a safe vehicle. Pick any one of those safe vehicles you want to be able to have. But we just set the rules of the road, and then get out of the way and let people decide which vehicle they want to drive on that road. That's what has happened this week. Now, I understand there's been a lot of bluster and a lot of trying to redefine what actually just occurred. But what has occurred this week is choice for the American people and clarification of what has always been. When an agency says it's a rule, it's a rule. Just like it was last year, just like it is now, just like it will be next year. Technical, but important, because the American people want to follow the United States Constitution and know that all legislative powers reside in this body, not in some other building somewhere down the street. With that, I yield the floor.
Okay, the committee will now come to order. Let me start out of courtesy for my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. Thank you for your patience and for being flexible. And I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience. I never want to cut your time short with your families because it's so precious and few, those moments. I know that as a dad of 3 young children. So anyway, I know it will happen, I'm sure, on both sides from time to time, but I want to just acknowledge that. And if there's any way in the future that we can avoid these things, I'll do it, Mr. Ranking Member. So any quick comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if don't mind, I do have just a couple parliamentary inquiries. Obviously, this is highly unusual. The fact that we recessed after a failed vote Friday morning, around lunchtime Friday, now we're back here late Sunday night. So presumably, we are voting again because some folks on your side of the aisle may have changed their mind due to some side agreements. So my parliamentary inquiry is, will the committee be able to see what side agreements have been reached? Will they be added as either an MTI or just here verbally, reflecting the ways in which now apparently the bill has changed?
The deliberations have continued up to this point where we judge this reconciliation bill or the many component parts as it relates to the budget targets that we've set, and that is what we're voting on. Deliberations continue at this very moment. They will continue on into the week, and I suspect right up until the time we put this big, beautiful bill on the floor of the House. So that's what we're here to do, and we're not going to disclose the deliberations. I'm not sure I could disclose all the deliberations.
Well, if I might, I certainly wouldn't.
I don't know anything about side deals or any deals. I just know we're at a place where we can take a vote today and not have to be back here for multiple votes.
Yeah, I would just, in the interest of transparency, if the bill has changed and there's been some side agreement reached, I think it's important that all the members have the full details on that in advance of any vote. So that way we know in a transparent, honest way exactly what we're voting on.
Yeah. You will get it in the manager's amendment like many of the, or like most of the members here. So I couldn't tell you what is in flux, what is fixed, what might change or not change. As you all well know, this process is fluid, and it will go to the Rules Committee. Most likely there will be some changes, and that's the way the process goes. So I know you appreciate that. Having
finally,
been through it before many times.
Well, I haven't had the opportunity to be chair, but I very much look forward to that year and a half from now. Finally, my other parliamentary inquiry, and a very serious point. As you know, we all operate under the 1974 Budget and Impoundment Control Act. It's what set up these committees, what set up Congressional Budget Office, requires a CBO score. We don't have, unless something has happened this weekend that I'm unaware of, we don't have that CBO score in front of us. Do you know when we will get the CBO score, both of the budget bill that we're voting in front of us and the scoring of any changes that it looks like are going to happen?
I will look into the timing of any outstanding CBO scores, and I'm certain that if there are outstanding scores, that those will be disclosed before our members vote, before our members collectively, both Democrats and Republicans.
Before you vote on the floor.
Yeah. But just let's appreciate how far we've come. And since you're asking me these, I think, relevant questions, we didn't even have, the last time we did reconciliation and the Democrats were in charge and had unified control of Congress, it never even went through regular order, didn't even come to this committee so that we could even have this dialogue. We couldn't even have asked that question.
We ended up having to vote. I remember because it was a Saturday, and it was a 10, 11 hour markup.
Well,
yeah. That concludes my parliamentary.
Did the budget resolution come through this committee? It did not. There was not a
budget resolution substantive. There was a shell one, but there wasn't any substantive fiscal framework from which you all and we would judge it. I'm just saying, we've run regular order. We've done budgets twice since I've been chair, the 2 years that I've been chair. We'll do one this year again for 26. And we haven't done a budget in the entire time, no disrespect, but because we're getting off topic, but not one time in the last 4 years was there a real budget, a 10-year budget, a budget resolution, other than the shell.
I mean,
and I just think, we're doing the people's business the best we can. You may disagree with it, and we may not have all the pieces yet pulled together, but this is a response.
So keep it, and I appreciate you've always been good about the fact that we have a healthy, vigorous debate here, and I think we both agree that that's good for the process and happen to enjoy it. I'm not looking to, relitigate the last 8 years or 20 years. I just mean on the bill that's in front of us, making sure all the members know transparently just what the heck is in this thing, because obviously it's changing back in that back room by the minute. And then the second thing is what exactly the score is according to CBO. I think both of those things are important for all of us. And I think if the roles were reversed, to conclude, if the roles were reversed, you would be saying the same thing.
Well, no, I wouldn't, but now I will. No, I'm kidding. No, look, when there is a definitive change, people will know that change. When there are definitive changes, and they will be reflected if those changes should occur in a manager's amendment. That's just how this works. So I appreciate the inquiry, and I believe it to be, earnest and in good faith, but that's the answer. Let's get on with this business if we can. Okay. I now recognize the Vice Chairman, Mr. Smucker of Pennsylvania, for the purposes of a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to reconsider the vote to report the One Big Beautiful Bill Act to the House.
Representative Smucker moves to reconsider the vote on reporting the reconciliation bill. Question is now on the motion to reconsider offered by Vice Chairman Smucker. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying no.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to.
Request a recorded vote.
A roll call vote is requested. The clerk shall call the roll.
Mr. Norman.
In an effort to move this bill forward, I'm excited about the changes we've made, and I will vote present.
What are the changes?
Mr. Norman, present.
Wait, what changes?
Mr. McClintock.
Aye.
Mr. McClintock, aye. Mr. Grothman. Mr. Grothman, aye. Mr. Smucker. Aye. Mr. Smucker, aye. Mr. Carter. Aye. Mr. Carter, aye. Mr. Klein. Aye. Mr. Klein, aye. Mr. Bergman. Aye. Mr. Bergman, aye. Mr. Roy.
This is just reconsider, correct?
Yeah, this is just to reconsider, and then we'll have a vote on the bill itself. Yeah.
Mr. Roy.
How is Mr. Norman recorded?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Norman is recorded as present.
Does the gentleman wish to change his vote?
Wish to change my vote to yes.
Continue.
Mr. Norman is off present and on aye. Mr. Roy, aye. Mr. Stutzman. Mr. Stutzman, aye. Mr. Moore of Utah. Mr. Moore of Utah, aye. Mr. Estes. Mr. Estes, aye. Mr. Burkeen. Mr. Burkeen, aye. Mr. Obernolte. Mr. Obernolte, aye. Mr. Carey. Mr. Carey, aye. Mr. Edwards. Mr. Edwards, aye. Mr. Clyde. Mr. Clyde, aye. Ms. Houchin. Ms. Houchin, aye. Mr. McDowell. Mr. McDowell, aye. Mr. Gill. Mr. Gill, aye. Mr. Moore of North Carolina. Mr. Moore of North Carolina, aye. Mr. Boyle. No. Mr. Boyle, no. Mr. Doggett. No. Mr. Doggett, no. Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Peters. Mr. Peters, no. Mr. Panetta. Mr. Panetta, no. Ms. Watson-Coleman. No. Ms. Watson-Coleman, no. Ms. Plaskett. No. Ms. Plaskett, no. Ms. Escobar. No. Ms. Escobar, no. Ms. Omar. No. Ms. Omar, no. Ms. Ballant.
No.
Ms. Ballant, no. Ms. Captor. No. Ms. Captor, no. Ms. Jayapal. No. Ms. Jayapal, no. Ms. Chu. No. Ms. Chu, no. Mr. Tonko. No. Mr. Tonko, no. Mr. McGarvey. No. Mr. McGarvey, no. Mr. Amo. No. Mr. Amo, no. Mr. Chairman. Yes. Mr. Chairman, aye.
Are there any members who have not voted or wish to change their vote? If not, The clerk will report.
Mr. Chair, on the vote, there were 21 ayes and 16 noes.
The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The committee will now vote to favorably report the One Big Beautiful
Mr.
Bill Act to
Chairman.
the House. The gentleman from Virginia,
I have a
Mr. Scott.
parliamentary inquiry.
Go ahead.
According to CBO, at least one policy in the bill would reduce participation in SNAP by 3 million people, and we just heard that there had been changes in the bill. Do we have any official estimate from CBO on how either the present bill or whatever the bill is we're actually voting on would increase hunger? How many people would lose their SNAP benefits?
I think the gentleman from Virginia, I don't believe it's a parliamentary inquiry. I will tell you this, the bill has not changed. There are no formal or final changes, and we're voting on exactly what we presented the other day, last Friday. So with that, let's continue with the business.
Further inquiry?
Last inquiry I'm going to entertain.
Well, do we have any estimates? We never got an estimate of how many children will lose school lunch certification by losing their SNAP benefits. Do we expect that information? Or do we care?
We debated this fully, Mr. Scott. We're going to continue with the business at hand. Now, the committee clerk, will you call the roll?
Mr. Chairman?
No more parliamentary inquiries. We're going to finish this business, okay, guys? The reconciliation bill that we debated and that we discussed. I just asked for the clerk to call the roll.
State the question. Mr. Norman.
Present.
Mr. Norman, present. Mr. McClintock.
Aye.
Mr. McClintock, aye. Mr. Grothman. Mr. Grothman, aye. Mr. Smucker. Mr. Smucker, aye. Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter, aye. Mr. Klein. Mr. Klein, aye. Mr. Bergman. Mr. Bergman, aye. Mr. Roy. Mr. Roy, present. Mr. Stutzman. Mr. Stutzman, aye. Mr. Moore of Utah. Mr. Moore of Utah, aye. Mr. Estes. Mr. Estes, aye. Mr. Burkeen. Mr. Burkeen, present. Mr. Obernolte. Mr. Obernolte, aye. Mr. Carey. Mr. Carey, aye. Mr. Edwards. Mr. Edwards, aye. Mr. Clyde. Mr. Clyde, present. Ms. Houchin. Ms. Houchin, aye. Mr. McDowell. Mr. McDowell, aye. Mr. Gill. Mr. Gill, aye. Mr. Moore of North Carolina. Mr. Moore of North Carolina, aye. Mr. Boyle.
No.
Mr. Boyle, no. Mr. Doggett.
No.
Mr. Doggett, no. Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Peters. Mr. Peters, no. Mr. Panetta. Mr. Panetta, no. Ms. Watson-Coleman.
No.
Ms. Watson-Coleman, no. Ms. Plaskett.
No.
Ms. Plaskett, no. Ms. Escobar.
No.
Ms. Escobar, no. Ms. Omar. No. Ms. Omar, no. Ms. Ballant.
No.
Ms. Ballant, no. Ms. Capter. Ms. Capter, no. Ms. Jayapal. Ms. Jayapal, no. Ms. Chu. Ms. Chu, no. Mr. Tonko.
No.
Mr. Tonko, no. Mr. McGarvey.
No.
Mr. McGarvey, no. Mr. Amo.
No.
Mr. Amo, no. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, aye.
Are there any members who wish to change their vote or who have not voted? If not, the clerk shall report.
Mr. Chair, on the vote, there were 17 ayes, 16 noes, and 4 present.
The ayes have it, and the motion's agreed to. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act is ordered, reported favorably to the House of Representatives with a favorable recommendation. I know for the record that a quorum is present.
Mr. Chair, now that the committee has voted on the reconciliation bill, ask for the requisite number of days for the minority to file its views.
So ordered.
Or, yes, so request the requisite number.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
ordered. Without objection, the motion to reconsider has been laid on the table on the measure just reported. Staff are authorized to make any necessary technical and conforming corrections prior to filing the bill, and the chair is authorized to offer motions to go to conference pursuant to Clause 1 of House Rule 22 on the bill just reported, or any companion measure from the Senate. So ordered. We will now vote on the postponed roll call votes on the motions to instruct The committee will now vote on the motion offered by Representative Ballant. The clerk will redesignate the motion.
Motion number 1, offered by Representative Ballant.
Motion offered by Representative Ballant. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Norman?
No.
Mr. Norman? No. Mr. McClintock? No. Mr. McClintock? No. Mr. Grothman? Mr. Grothman? No. Mr. Smucker? Mr. Smucker? No. Mr. Carter? No. Mr. Carter? No. Mr. Klein? No. Mr. Klein? No. Mr. Bergman? No. Mr. Bergman? No. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Stutzman? No. Mr. Stutzman? No. Mr. Moore of Utah? No. Mr. Moore of Utah? No. Mr. Estes? No. Mr. Estes? No. Mr. Burkeen? No. Mr. Burkeen? No. Mr. Obernolte? No. Mr. Obernolte? No. Mr. Carey? Mr. Carey? No. Mr. Edwards? No. Mr. Edwards? No. Mr. Clyde? Mr. Clyde? No. Ms. Houchin? Ms. Houchin? No. Mr. McDowell? Mr. McDowell? No. Mr. Gill? Mr. Gill? No. Mr. Moore of North Carolina? Mr. Moore of North Carolina? No. Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Boyle? Aye. Mr. Doggett?
Yes.
Mr. Doggett? Aye. Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Peters? Mr. Peters? Aye. Mr. Panetta?
Yes.
Mr. Panetta? Aye. Ms. Watson-Coleman? Ms. Watson-Coleman? Aye. Ms. Plaskett? Ms. Plaskett? Aye. Ms. Escobar? Ms. Escobar? Aye. Ms. Omar? Ms. Omar? Aye. Ms. Ballant?
To protect Medicaid, yes.
Ms. Ballant? Aye. Ms. Capter? Ms. Capter? Aye. Ms. Jayapal? Ms. Jayapal? Aye. Ms. Chu? Ms. Chu? Aye. Mr. Tonko? Mr. Tonko? Aye. Mr. McGarvey? Mr. McGarvey? Aye. Mr. Amo? Mr. Amo? Aye. Mr. Chairman?
No.
Mr. Chairman? No.
Are there any members who wish to vote who haven't or to change their vote? And if not, the clerk shall report.
Mr. Chair, on the vote, there were 16 ayes and 21 noes.
The noes have it. The motion is not agreed to. Committee will now vote on the motion offered by Representative Amo. The clerk will redesignate
Mr. Chairman,
the motion.
Mr. Chairman, could we get a statement of what the motion is?
Would you please restate the motion by Representative Amo?
Motion number 2, offered by Representative Amo. Mr. Amo moves that the Committee on the Budget direct its chairman to request on behalf of the committee that the rule for consideration of the bill make an order an amendment to implement President Trump's request to raise the income tax rate for millionaires.
A motion offered by Representative Amo. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Norman?
No.
Mr. Norman? No. Mr. McClintock? No. Mr. McClintock? No. Mr. Grothman? No. Mr. Grothman? No. Mr. Smucker? Mr. Smucker, no. Mr. Carter?
No.
Mr. Carter, no. Mr. Klein? No. Mr. Klein, no. Mr. Bergman?
No.
Mr. Bergman, no. Mr. Roy?
No.
Mr. Roy, no. Mr. Stutzman?
No.
Mr. Stutzman, no. Mr. Moore of Utah? No. Mr. Moore of Utah, no. Mr. Estes? No. Mr. Estes, no. Mr. Burkeen? No. Mr. Burkeen, no. Mr. Obernolte? No. Mr. Obernolte, no. Mr. Carey? Mr. Carey, no. Mr. Edwards? No. Mr. Edwards, no. Mr. Clyde? Mr. Clyde, no. Ms. Houchin? Ms. Houchin, no. Mr. McDowell? Mr. McDowell, no. Mr. Gill? Mr. Gill, no. Mr. Moore of North Carolina? No. Mr. Moore of North Carolina, no. Mr. Boyle?
Aye.
Mr. Boyle, aye. Mr. Doggett?
Aye.
Mr. Doggett, aye. Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Scott, aye. Mr. Peters? Aye. Mr. Peters, aye. Mr. Panetta? Mr. Panetta, aye. Ms. Watson-Coleman? Aye. Ms. Watson-Coleman, aye. Ms. Plaskett? Aye. Ms. Plaskett, aye. Ms. Escobar? Aye. Ms. Escobar, aye. Ms. Omar? Aye. Ms. Omar, aye. Ms. Ballant?
Aye.
Ms. Ballant, aye. Ms. Capter?
I really don't understand why this doesn't include billionaires, but I'll vote aye.
Ms. Capter, aye. Ms. Jayapal?
It was y'all's amendment.
Ms. Jayapal, aye. Ms. Chu? Aye. Ms. Chu, aye. Mr. Tonko?
Aye.
Mr. Tonko, aye. Mr. McGarvey?
Aye.
Mr. McGarvey, aye. Mr. Amo?
Aye.
Mr. Amo, aye. Mr. Chairman? No. Mr. Chairman, no.
Any member wish to change their vote, or any member who hasn't voted who'd like to vote? If not, the clerk will call the report.
Mr. Chair, on the vote, there were 16 ayes and 21 noes.
The noes have it. The motion is not agreed to. The committee will now vote on the motion offered by Representative McGarvey. And if you'd restate the motion, I think that's appropriate, Bobby. So if you'd restate that motion and redesignate that motion for the purposes of our vote.
Motion number 3, offered by Representative McGarvey. Mr. McGarvey moves that the Committee on the Budget direct its chairman to request on behalf of the committee that the rule for consideration of the bill make an order and amendment to strike all sections of the bill estimated by the Congressional Budget Office to reduce participation in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program.
If the clerk will call the vote.
Mr. Norman?
No.
Mr. Norman? No. Mr. McClintock? No. Mr. McClintock? No. Mr. Grothman? Mr. Grothman? No. Mr. Smucker? Mr. Smucker? No. Mr. Carter? No. Mr. Carter? No. Mr. Klein? No. Mr. Klein? No. Mr. Bergman? No. Mr. Bergman? No. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Stutzman? No. Mr. Stutzman? No. Mr. Moore of Utah? No. Mr. Moore of Utah? No. Mr. Estes? No. Mr. Estes? No. Mr. Burkeen? No. Mr. Burkeen? No. Mr. Obernolte? No. Mr. Obernolte? No. Mr. Carey? Mr. Carey? No. Mr. Edwards? No. Mr. Edwards? No. Mr. Clyde? No. Mr. Clyde? No. Ms. Houchin? Ms. Houchin? No. Mr. McDowell? No. Mr. McDowell? No. Mr. Gill? No. Mr. Gill? No. Mr. Moore of North Carolina? No. Mr. Moore of North Carolina? No. Mr. Boyle?
Aye.
Mr. Boyle? Aye. Mr. Doggett? Aye. Mr. Doggett? Aye. Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Peters? Aye. Mr. Peters? Aye. Mr. Panetta? Yes. Mr. Panetta? Aye. Ms. Watson-Coleman? Yes. Ms. Watson-Coleman? Aye. Ms. Plaskett? Yes. Ms. Plaskett? Aye. Ms. Escobar? Aye. Ms. Escobar? Aye. Ms. Omar? Ms. Omar? Aye. Ms. Ballant?
Yes.
Ms. Ballant? Aye. Ms. Capter? Aye. Ms. Capter? Aye. Ms. Jayapal? Aye. Ms. Jayapal? Aye. Ms. Chu? Aye. Ms. Chu? Aye. Mr. Tonko? Aye. Mr. Tonko? Aye. Mr. McGarvey? Yes. Mr. McGarvey? Aye. Mr. Ramo? Aye. Mr. Ramo? Aye. Mr. Chairman?
No.
Mr. Chairman? No.
Any member wish to change their vote or vote who haven't voted? If not, the clerk shall report.
Mr. Chair, on the vote, there were 16 ayes and 21 noes.
The noes have it. The motion's not agreed to. The committee will now vote on the motion offered by Representative Jayapal. And if you would again restate what that motion to direct is as you redesignate the motion.
Motion number 4, offered by Representative Jayapal. Ms. Jayapal moves that the Committee on the Budget direct its chairman to request on behalf of the committee that the rule for consideration of the bill include a point of order prohibiting the use of a current policy baseline to estimate the effects of a future amendment between the Houses or conference report on the bill.
This is the one you found very compelling, Mr. Chairman.
It was compelling, I must admit.
So there's another chance for you to vote yes on it.
Even after I've slept a couple nights, it was compelling. But
a great show of bipartisanship,
the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. McClintock?
No.
Mr. McClintock? No. Mr. Grothman? Mr. Grothman? No. Mr. Smucker? Mr. Smucker? No. Mr. Carter? No. Mr. Carter? No. Mr. Klein? No. Mr. Klein? No. Mr. Bergman? No. Mr. Bergman? No. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Stutzman? No. Mr. Stutzman? No. Mr. Moore of Utah? No. Mr. Moore of Utah? No. Mr. Estes? No. Mr. Estes? No. Mr. Burkeen? No. Mr. Burkeen? No. Mr. Obernolte? Mr. Obernolte? No. Mr. Carey? Mr. Carey? No. Mr. Edwards? Mr. Edwards? No. Mr. Clyde? Mr. Clyde? No. Ms. Houchin? Ms. Houchin? No. Mr. McDowell? Mr. McDowell? No. Mr. Gill? Mr. Gill? No. Mr. Moore of North Carolina? Mr. Moore of North Carolina? No. Mr. Boyle? Mr. Boyle? Aye. Mr. Doggett? Mr. Doggett? Aye. Mr. Scott? Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Peters? Mr. Peters? Aye. Mr. Panetta? Mr. Panetta? Aye. Ms. Watson-Coleman? Ms. Watson-Coleman? Aye. Ms. Plaskett? Ms. Plaskett? Aye. Ms. Escobar? Ms. Escobar? Aye. Ms. Omar? Ms. Omar? Aye. Ms. Ballant?
Aye.
Ms. Ballant? Aye. Ms. Capter? Ms. Capter? Aye. Ms. Jayapal? Ms. Jayapal? Aye. Ms. Chu? Ms. Chu? Aye. Mr. Tonko? Mr. Tonko? Aye. Mr. McGarvey? Mr. McGarvey? Aye. Mr. Amo? Mr. Amo? Aye. Mr. Chairman?
No.
Mr. Chairman, no.
Are there any members who wish to change their vote or vote if they haven't voted? If not, the clerk shall report.
Mr. Chair, on the vote, there were 16 ayes and 21 noes.
The noes have it. The motion's not agreed to. That concludes the business of the committee today. I want to thank the ranking member, Mr. Boyle, for working with me to make this meeting go as smoothly as it did, considering all things considered. I also want to thank the Congressional Budget Office, the Office of Legislative Counsel, for working with us and authorizing committees, all the authorizing committees in this process. The CBO provided extensive support in scoring and the instructed committee's legislative recommendation. The The Office of Legislative Counsel similarly played a fundamental role in drafting the legislative text. I know a lot of long hours went into hitting our aggressive timeline, and we all appreciate their role in this process. Well, tonight, the House Budget Committee took a critical step to passing the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and making President Trump's America First vision a reality for the American people. So let's go forth and deliver on what we promised the American people.
Since you gave a brief close, I think
Well, that was I'd like to kind of end on that one. That's
Well, I respectfully disagree, and this will not be extended. You only spoke for a few sentences, so I'll keep it very short. Obviously, the members on this side have a completely different view based on at least what was in the bill as of Friday, and what I certainly think will be there. CBO saying 13,700,000 Americans at least will lose their health care because of this bill for billionaires that was passed. We will continue to fight it on our side of the aisle.
Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're adjourned.
More ambitious goals and standards for the nation, then California needs and deserves the ability to lead for itself, to protect Californians. And that's why these waivers have been so important. Because absent the federal government doing its part, and I'm not holding my breath for the next 3.5 years waiting for the Trump EPA to do so, then California needs the federal waivers to get the job done. But I know that even after all this progress, the detractors will fall back on the same tired playbook of excuses. We know that the big oil industry sees California's clean cars and clean truck sales as existential threats. California has made tremendous advancements, not just in technology, but in markets. But that's why the fossil fuel industry has launched an all-out assault on California's rules. I'll give you just one example. If you happen to be reading the Wall Street Journal this past January, you might have picked up in an op-ed with the headline, quote, Biden's EPA tries to put one over with EV mandate, end quote. That kind of sounds a little ominous. But if you read it, who the authors were. The authors went on to complain about how slow and laborious the process is for EPA to revoke a California waiver administratively. They literally tripped themselves up searching for every possible way to weaponize the Congressional Review Act to take down California's waivers. Now, who were those authors? The authors were partners at the law firm of Bowden Gray, who represent oil and gas clients and who were in court actively trying to repeal California's waivers. So it makes a whole lot of sense when you realize that they worked to publish this op-ed by June 8th, just 12 days before January 20th, when Donald Trump was sworn into his second term. And it's certainly no surprise that a month later, the EPA attempted to submit waivers as rules for congressional review, claiming that the Biden EPA had withheld them. Now, it's a little rich to accuse the Biden administration of withholding EPA waivers when the first Trump administration did the exact same thing. And so did every other EPA before it, both Republican and Democratic, in its entire 50-plus year history of the California waiver provision. In fact, when Donald Trump's EPA did what the Boyd and Gray lawyers told them to, submitting these waivers as rules to Congress, they actually still included language admitting that these were waivers and not rules. And when they were called on it, when it was pointed out, they had to go through the motions, do backflips, and resubmit the waivers to Congress. Ridiculous. Blatant. Now, regardless of how ludicrous this effort's been, we continue to hear all kinds of misinformation from detractors about why California's ambitious goals just won't work. I have a series of them, but I'll just focus on the main talking point that I've heard from my Republican colleagues and from industry, that California is somehow coercing other states into adopting California standards, or to let California do this is the equivalent of setting a national standard, or that these emission standards would become de facto national ones. That's ridiculous. We've made it clear, let California take care of Californians. If California had the power, the authority to set those national standards, trust me, we'd be doing this and a lot more. But we don't. But I think the good work that California has done that has benefited Californians, both our health and our economy, along with our environment, has inspired more than a dozen other states to follow California's lead voluntarily. Nobody's forcing other states, blue states or red states, to follow California's lead, but there's other states who see the benefits of what California is doing, and they choose to do so to protect their residents and to protect their environment. And lastly, let me just conclude by stating something that has conveniently been stifled in this whole debate, limited debate and conversation. So who benefits from all this? It's not unleashing job creation and innovation in states, in the other 49 states but California. It's holding our nation back in terms of improving air quality and our transition to a clean energy economy. The winner here is actually China, because like it or not, the clean energy boom globally is happening. And we have a big say in who leads it and who benefits from it. Is it the United States? Not by the leadership and the policies I've seen of this administration in the near future. It can be California, but it seems like you're more interested in taking our tools away. And so now we risk China jumping ahead both economically and technologically in this space. So I'll remind you folks, but because of California's leaning in on addressing the emissions, pollution, and climate challenges, California has become the fourth largest economy in the world. We have proven that what's good for clean air is good for business and the economy, and that is something that y'all to replicate and scale up, not fear and stifle. We have to be able to do both, protect our planet, strengthen our economy. California has shown us the way. We can have reliable cars. Our kids can breathe clean air. We can invest in our economy and in our future. California has been proud to fill the role of national leader in this space. We will continue to try to do anything and everything we can to do so, both for our interest and for the nation's. But what's happened these last 24 hours makes the job that much harder. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.
President.
Senator from California.
Madam President, members, welcome to the Roaring Twenties. Not the ones you may have read about in F. Scott Fitzgerald novels, not the ones with jazz and liberation and industrial boom. I mean these Roaring Twenties, the ones where instead of flappers you get fossil fuel and dirty air, where instead of innovation you get obstruction, tariffs, isolationism, blinding nostalgia for a world that no longer exists. Instead of leaders who want to tackle the climate crisis head on, you get votes to tear down the tools that we need to fight it. The reason I stand here today and was here last night until 1:32 in the morning is that Senate Republicans have pushed through resolutions to revoke California's authority to set its own vehicle emissions standards, to set its own rules about what kind of air we breathe in California. This is an authority that my state has had by statute for more than 50 years. We've had the right to deal with our unique problems of congestion, our topography, our smog. We've had the right to demand of ourselves cleaner air for ourselves and for our children. And that is under attack right now, and not just California's ability to set its standards to protect its people, but because other states have also followed California's lead, this will affect the quality of air all around the country. And that is the gravamen of the problem for my colleagues in the GOP, and that is that it's not just California, it's the fact that so many other states have followed our lead. So many other states have decided they'd rather have fewer cancers than more cars with the combustion engines. That was their choice. That was their right. They weren't coerced into joining California. They made the decision about what was best for their constituents. And it is not for us in this body to arrogate to ourselves to decide we know better for Californians or we know better for people in other states than what their own leaders have decided about the quality of their air. This is a direct attack not only on my state, but on our ability to innovate, to lead, and indeed to breathe clean air. This is bad policy, clearly, certainly, yes, but it is also a dangerous abuse of the process in this House that will lead to other harmful consequences. To get this done, to repeal California's statutory waiver to set its own air pollution rules, Republican leadership have decided to blow a procedural hole in the filibuster. And let's call it what it is. This is a dangerous new kind of nuclear option that dispenses with the filibuster, but they would have us believe only here, only when it's necessary to cater to the oil industry. It is the oil exception to the filibuster rule. Now, the nuclear option has been used over nominees in the past, and there has been debate about doing away with the filibuster entirely. But today what we're talking about is only carving out the oil industry from the filibuster. So not carving out protection for voting rights, not carving out protection for reproductive freedom, not carving out fundamental rights for the American people, for which there would be a strong case to have a carve-out from the filibuster. But no, today we're talking about an oil industry-only carve-out. And they're using it to overturn some of the most successful clean air policies in American history.